Welcome to We Learn, Virtual Learning Network. This is session number 18 of the subject Modern Indian Political Thought, and the chapter is Sir Syed Ahmed Khan, Mohammad Iqbal, Ahmed Jinnah and Abdul Kalam Azad. Let's see the topics to be covered. Introduction, Sir Syed Ahmed Khan, Mohammad Iqbal, Ahmed Jinnah and Abdul Kalam Azad. Introduction, British colonial rule brought about a number of changes in Indian society along with the spread of modern education which generated consciousness of nationalism in Indians of all religions. So Britishers came and they set up their colonial rule and they established their business here and they started generating money. And alongside, for their own benefit, they started the education system, but that education also paved the way for the development and for generating consciousness of nationalism in Indians of all religions. So it proved also a benefit for the Indians. Nationalistic feelings found expression through political, socio-cultural and religious processes and activities. So various religious dharnas, processes, activities, socio-cultural and political activities. In that activities, nationalistic feelings are also found expression. The enlightened individuals belonging to the Hindu and the Muslim communities generated consciousness in society and particularly in their respective communities. So also the enlightened individuals, the people who gained something from the education system of the Britishers, they started generating consciousness in their society and in their respective communities as well. In the latter part of the 19th and first half of the 20th centuries, there emerged several social, religious, cultural and political movements and organizations in India. So in the latter part of 19th century and the first half of the 20th century, there emerged various social, religious, cultural, political movements and organizations that were also associated with the Indian national struggle and which aimed at the overthrow of the British Empire. Sir Syed Ahmed Khan, Aligarh movement. Sir Syed Ahmed Khan founded the Aligarh movement. This movement aimed at spreading modern education and creating political consciousness among the Indian Muslims. So Sir Syed headed this movement and it aimed at spreading modern education to giving them and also bringing them, enlightening them and politically awakening them, the Indian Muslims, towards their rights and responsibilities. The first national awakening among the Muslims found expression through this movement only. So the Muslims were awakened and they became conscious only through this movement. He was assisted in his movement by able persons like Khwaja Atlaf Hussain Ali, Maulvi Wazir Ahmed and Maulvi Shibli Numani. So these able persons assisted Sir Syed Ahmed Khan. This movement is known as Aligarh movement because it had started at Aligarh. Political thought. The political thought of Sir Syed Ahmed Khan can be divided into two phases. First phase spanned up to 1887 and the second phase started after 1887. So during the first phase, Sir Syed Ahmed Khan stood for Hindu-Muslim unity. He said that Hindus and Muslims are together. He emphasized on brotherhood and the unity of these two religions of Hindus and as well as the Muslims. Expressing the need for Hindu-Muslim unity, he said that for centuries we have been living on the same soil, eating the same fruit on the same land, breathing the air of the same country. So why the Hindus and Muslims cannot be together? Why there cannot be unity between these two religions? Why they are separate? In 1873, he declared that religion should not be an obstacle for nationalism. For nationalism or for political nationalism or for overthrowing or for forming the Indian national movement, religion should not be an obstacle for any other point or specifically not for nationalism. Mohammad Iqbal, Islam and ego. Iqbal believed that Islam has been rendered useless for the modern man because of its medieval spirit, because of its spirit which was ancient, which was old. It was so not because of the weakness of Islam per se, but because of the fact that people did not understand the true spirit of Islam. That people did not understand the basic idea, the basic understanding of the religion of Islam. That is why it has been considered useless because of its medieval spirit. He blamed the orthodox and self-seeking Sufis for providing a narrow interpretation of Islam. Interpretation of Islam was not progressive in nature. It was he blamed them. He blamed the orthodoxy and self-seeking Sufis. Their orthodox thinking, their self-seeking or their selfish thinking, the Sufis who provided a very narrow and which lopsided interpretation which was not proper and which was not correct. Iqbal believed that medieval mysticism deprives the followers of Islam of healthy instincts and puts forth only the obscure thoughts. Medieval mysticism means ancient practices or ancient superstitions that only deprives the followers of Islam of having healthy instincts, of having healthy thoughts, or of having positive thoughts, and puts only obscure negative thoughts in them, and it only puts them at risk. So medieval mysticism, the practices, the old practices, the old traditions and the old religious practices followed, they were so much into the Muslims that they were deprived of the healthy and the positive instincts. He believed that revival of true Islam was a must for the cure of the world. To cure the people, or to cure the people from all the religions, and also to cure the world, there has to be revival and there has to be reform of the true Islam, wherein characteristics of brotherhood and nationhood has to be emerged. Mohammad Iqbal. Cardinal principles of Iqbal's political thought. So this was all about his political thought. The conflict between East and West, or between love and reason, form the cardinal principle of Iqbal's political thought. The conflict between the Eastern values as well as the Western values, their concepts, and also between love and reason, that also forms the basic principle of Iqbal's political understanding or of Iqbal's political thought. Iqbal had shown strong distrust of West and Western civilization. He showed distrust. He showed that West or the Western civilization was not proper, and it was the only Western influence that had spoiled people, and he expressed his strong distrust that Western civilization or the Western culture was not proper and was not correct and has to be removed. To him, the West symbolized values of materialism, and it was in contravention of the high values of spiritualism and religiosity characterizing the East. So the East characterized the values of spiritualism, religiosity, and also positivity. But the West symbolized only materialism and contravention of these high values, and the focus was on self-interest of all, on materialism, on money, rather than the East, which characterized its thoughts on spiritualism, religiosity, on positive human values which it focused on. But the Western civilization did not focus on any of these things. That is why he had strong distrust of Western civilization. The basis of West is reason, while that of the Eastern civilization is love. Eastern civilization focuses on the principle of love, compassion, brotherhood, unity. But the Western people focus on the reason, that what can be the reason behind this particular thing, or the self-interest or the self-motive. Nationalism. In Iqbal's opinion, rationalism provides a psychological and political justification for the nation state. The capitalist system was responsible for its emergence. It is based on the consideration of territory. Nationalism merely attaches an individual to a territory. Patriotism, according to Iqbal, is different from nationalism. Patriotism is a perfectly natural virtue and has a place in the moral life of a man. So patriotism is different from nationalism. Rationalism provides a political justification for why the nation state exists, and also the psychological justification. The capitalist system is responsible for the emergence of the consideration of territory. Nationalism also merely attaches an individual, does not attach an individual to the territory. Patriotism has a special place in the moral life of a man, so it is different from nationalism. Democracy. To Iqbal, democracy was one of the important features of the modern Western system. This democracy is different from and opposed to the Islamic democracy. So Iqbal said that democracy was one of the important features of the modern Western system, and it is opposed to the Islamic democracy. This concept of democracy is the invention of the West. It believes in the sovereignty of the people and in the concept of liberty and equality. Western democracy is the result of a reaction to the past dominated by the feudal structure of Europe. Why democracy emerged in the Western countries? That was because of the reaction to the dominance of the feudal structure of Europe. That is why Western people reacted to it, and democracy was the result of it, which focused on sovereignty, liberty, and equality of the people. Iqbal thought that these features of democracy are inconsistent with the tenets of Islam. What Islam says or what Islam emphasized, the features of democracy of the West are not in agreement or inconsistent with the tenets of Islam. Islamic democracy. He condemned the Western concept of democracy and urged an acceptance of Islamic democracy. Islamic democracy has to be accepted. Islamic democracy did not grow out of the extension of economic opportunities. It was not based upon materialism, it was not based upon economic opportunity, but simply love and compassion. It is based on the assumption that every human being is a center of latent power, which can be developed by cultivating a certain type of character. In Islamic democracy, emphasis is more on moral considerations. Iqbal's democracy does not belong to the people but to unique individuals. So Iqbal's democracy focused on unique individuals, and its emphasis was on moral considerations and not on other economic considerations. It is based on the assumption that every human being is a center of latent power. Every human being has power, which can be developed by cultivating a certain type of character, or can be developing a certain type of character or a skill in them. Socialism. Iqbal was impressed by the concept of socialism as propounded by Karl Marx in the sense that it rejects capitalism, democracy, and nationalism. He finds many points of similarity between Islam and Marxian ideology. So Iqbal founded many points between Islam and Marxian ideology of similarity, and he was impressed by the concept of socialism, which was propounded by Karl Marx, wherein he thought that socialism, the means of production would be in the hands of the state, and the means of production will be overthrown by the ruling class from the ruled class by the means of a revolution. Individual. An individual is inseparable from the society. His truest self achieves fulfillment in the society. So only an individual can grow in a society, and an individual cannot be separable from the society. The highest aim of the individual is to achieve union with society. He owes his body and spirit to the society. So his body and spirit he owes us to the society, and this was the highest aim, to achieve union with the society, and also the truest self achieves fulfillment in the society only. Man is a social animal and he has to be in contact with the society. M.A. Jinnah. Liberalism and Jinnah. Jinnah was initially influenced by British liberalism. He was associated with the leading Indian liberals, that is Dadabhai Naoroji, G.K. Gokhale, S.N. Banerjee and R.C. Das. His early liberalism was a product of his English education and the influence of Indian liberals. He had uncompromising faith in the concept of nationalism, democracy, secularism and the unity of the country. He told Dr. Ashraf, happened to meet several important English liberals. I grasped that liberalism, which became part of my life, thrilled me very much. So this is what M.A. Jinnah said, and he had uncompromising faith in nationalism, democracy, secularism and the unity of the country, where the unity of the country can be achieved. Nationalism. According to Jinnah, the emergence of nationalism in India was the result of colonial policies, integration of India into a political and social unit, and spread of English education. So these were the factors responsible for emergence of nationalism. Initially, he believed in the pre-nation theory. He emphasized the unity between the Hindus and the Muslims. India had a single nationality where all religions lived together. This nationalism was a liberal and secular nationalism. He did not locate patriotism in religion. He did not consider pan-Islamism as a sound ideology for the Muslims of India. Pan-Islamism was not considered a good ideology for the Muslims of India by M.A. Jinnah. Two-nation theory. Jinnah's passion for Hindu-Muslim unity was replaced by his belief in the two-nation theory after he had rejected the Nehru and the Simon Commission reports. For him, Hindus and Muslims no more constituted a unity. Instead, they can now come to represent two separate nations. There have to be two separate nations for Hindus and Muslims, but they were not together, and Hindus and Muslims no longer constituted a unity. He emphasized that Muslims were a separate party and he spoke the language of a bargainer. As chairman of the Federal Committee, he said no constitution would work unless it gave a sense of security to the Muslims and other minorities. So, no constitution can be worked out if it does not give a sense of security to the Muslims and to the other minorities. And he emphasized that Muslims were a separate party and a separate class, and he spoke of the language of being a bargainer, where he was saying that Muslims were not in unity with the Hindus. So there has to be two nations for both of them. Abdul Kalam Azad. Romantic phase of his ideas. Azad opined that an understanding of Quran would help in political, social and cultural reconstruction of life. So, reconstruction of life required the understanding of Quran. He expressed his political views in Al-Hilas, which covered romantic phase of his ideas. He expressed profound belief in the sovereignty of God, establishment of the divine kingdom, order and good government, and in the supremacy of truth, where truth is held superior. And also there is God is supreme, God is sovereign, and also establishment of the divine kingdom, of the God's related kingdom, good government, good governance, order. There has to be these elements. So he expressed his profound belief in all these elements. He analyzed Indian politics in terms of religion. So he linked Indian politics within terms of religion. Nationalism. According to Azad, Indian nationalism was neither Hindu nor Islamic. This was secular and was a synthesis of Hindu and Muslim cultures. He became an advocate of Islam in liberal and Islamic sense. So, Hindus and Muslims are together, and there has to be a secular character between both of them. There has to be a synthesis between Hindus and Muslim cultures. They cannot be separate. We no longer remained hostile to the Western civilization. He said that religion and reason were not opposed to each other. Religion as well as logic as well as reason were in agreement with each other, but not hostile, and not to be hostile to the Western civilization as well. There are two aspects of Azad's concept of nationalism. They are, first, his attitude towards the British, second, his attitude towards his countrymen. Democracy. He supported democracy during the romantic phase of Al-Hilal. He remained a firm supporter of democracy even after he abandoned romanticism. He preached two different types of views during the romantic and post-romantic phases of his ideas. In the first phase, he did not regard democracy as a way of life. He considered only Islam as a true and perfect religion. So according to him, in the first phase, only Islam was a true religion and democracy was not regarded as a way of life. The Prophet was considered the personification of all values beneficial to mankind. And there has to be personification of all values. There has to be personal interpretation of all values which are beneficial to mankind. Post-romantic phase of his ideas. In the post-romantic phase, his views were no more confined to the influence of Islam. They spread under the influence of West. He expressed belief in the sovereignty of the people. He said that the country belonged to the people, that people comprises the country. So the people have to be sovereign. The country has to be sovereign. All people enjoyed equal rights. There has to be equality. The head of the state or caliph should be elected by the people. The head of the state, the leader, has to be only chosen by the people. The head of the state should not claim special privileges in relation to the people. So he cannot claim special privileges when people don't have them. So this was all about in the session wherein Abdul Kalam Azad's and other political reformers' views were also emphasized here. These are some of the questions. You have to do it yourself. Question number 1. Compare Iqbal's views on Western democracy with his views on Islamic democracy. Question number 2. Explain briefly Jinnah's views on the two-nation theory. Thank you. Happy learning. We learning.